travel doesn't really need an introduction. We've all seen Back to the Future after all, and if you haven't, quite frankly, you're missing out on one of the best films of all time. But most of us would never consider time travel to actually be real. Even the majority of so-called true stories, such as that of the man from Torred, are more often than not simply fiction. However, there are some very compelling and strange stories out there, true stories of perfectly ordinary people who've experienced something they can't explain, something which seems to show that time travel is not only possible, but that it is happening in our world right now. This week, we're going to hear the story of the Medway helicopter. This story was told to author Jenny Randles in her book Time Storms. Edith Sage, a mother of 3, lived in the Kent borough of Medway, southeast England. On the 8th of August 1980, Edith was walking to the corner shop to buy some peas. She was heading down an alleyway when something out the corner of her eye made her jump. In the sky was what appeared to be a rotating ring of smoke with sparks coming out of it. As Edith stared at this strange smoke ring, what looked like a futuristic helicopter started to appear behind it. It was a large, transparent bubble with green and tan markings, much like military camouflage. Inside the helicopter were 2 men wearing what appeared to be jumpsuits. As Edith carried on walking, her eyes still on the strange spectacle, the atmosphere changed. The sound suddenly altered, so everything became muted, as if she were hearing things from inside something. She also noticed a strange mist hovering on the fence between herself and the helicopter. It smelt sickly and made her feel dizzy. What happened next is truly extraordinary. Edith heard the 2 men inside the helicopter talking, but from inside her head. "You said it would be all right," said one. I know, and it's all right, she thinks we are army." This conversation seems to imply that Edith had stumbled across some kind of experiment that she wasn't supposed to see, and whose presence was deemed a threat to its success. Now in a daze, she headed to the shop, leaving the helicopter still there. Edith carried on about her day as normal, and in fact as the hours passed, she quickly forgot all about the strange incident, an unusual response to such an abnormal situation. She also had difficulty sleeping for a few weeks afterwards. Perhaps her mind simply couldn't cope with what she'd seen. It was while she was walking down the same alley some time later that Edith began to remember what had happened, piece by piece. But the strangest thing of all was that she realised the alleyway had permanently changed from how she remembered, changes which were utterly impossible. These were minor, such as a step narrowing or a house having a path where none had existed before. There was also a tree in the place where Edith had seen the helicopter, but she knew it couldn't have been there before as it would have blocked her view. So what exactly happened that day in Medway on that warm, sunny afternoon? It's interesting to note the similarities with some of the characteristics of this story and those of people who got lost in national parks in America and lived to tell the tale. Specifically, that of the sound becoming muted and a peculiar mist. Did Edith Sage witness some kind of time travel experiment that she wasn't supposed to see? Why did she start to hear the 2 men inside her head, and who were they? Where did they come from? Edith said they were most definitely human, meaning they weren't alien. Could it be that these men were from a future far ahead of our own time? The most frightening part of this story to me are the changes to the alleyway. Edith's world was altered from the one that she remembered, just this particular spot, where the helicopter had been. Did Edith somehow end up in a place, a world which was essentially still her own, but not the exact same one that she came from? In other words, is it possible that Edith Sage somehow ended up in another dimension?